Today's mini episode is a little different. It's not about a ride accident or a haunted attraction. This is a story rooted in real life and real loss. It began with a headstone, one I wasn't looking for, one I had never noticed before, even though I had walked that cemetery path a dozen times. 2 names, 1 date, October 31st, 1941. I was intrigued. I had to know what happened. And this is the story of Gordon and Frieda and the grave that pulled me into the past. My name is Marissa, your morbidly curious host, and this is Death Kiss Traveler. This is my very first video podcast, so if you are watching, welcome. If you are listening, I hope you enjoy it. Several weeks ago, I found myself in a quiet cemetery, placing flowers on my grandparents' graves. A place I'd visited a dozen times before, but on that day something was different. Something drew me about 30 feet away to a small, unassuming headstone. I had never noticed it before. I stopped and stared at the names etched into the cold stone. Gordon R., born September 20th, 1922, and Frieda K., born February 5th, 1926. Gibbs was scrolled across the top. Both had died on the same day, October 31st, 1941, on Halloween. 2 young lives lost on the same day. Who were they and what had happened? Their headstone was empty. No flowers, no mementos. And for weeks, I have been obsessed with uncovering their story, piecing together clues from decades ago to understand the tragic fate of these young people. Assuming they were siblings, I had to know more. Something was pulling me to their direction, even going back to the cemetery to find their headstone again. Gordon Reed Gibbs was born in 1922 to Essie Morris Gibbs and Maddie Anderson. He was born in the small town of Hiram, Utah. He was one of 12 siblings, a large family surviving on hard work and modest means. Gordon was a laborer, spending summers working for neighbors and farmers, earning enough to buy his own suit for Sunday church. Gordon's mother wrote an autobiography, and I am so grateful that she did. She wrote tenderly of the days of the boys hunting elk, fishing in local streams, and shared the simple joys of rural life. Gordon had brothers and sisters, but despite the bustle of family life, tragedy was never far for this family. In 1936, they lost a daughter, Mary, shortly after birth, and on October 31st, in November of 1945, their 1-year-old son Scott passed away from not being able to digest food. Frieda was Frieda Kidman. She was born in 1926 in Petersboro, Utah, located in Cache County. She came from a family of 8 children. Her family was also no stranger to tragedy. Her older brother had died young, only 14 years old, from pneumonia in 1936. Frieda was a high school junior, active in her LDS church, navigating the fragile world of teenage dreams amid the economic struggles at the time. Their worlds collided, and the couple began dating. In 1941, Utah life was shaped by strong faith, rural traditions, and a fast-approaching war. It was a place where teenagers like Gordon and Frieda balanced the joys of dances, movie nights, and church socials with the realities of economic hardship. In Cache County, Utah at the time, teens found ways to make life memorable. They went to movie theaters, cruised Main Street in their family cars, danced to big band music, and gathered at soda fountains for ice cream and gossip. High school sporting events were the highlights of the weekends. They fished in Logan Canyon, played basketball, and volunteered for wartime efforts, sewing, gardening, collecting scrap metal. The South Cache Courier reported that Gordon and Frieda were outstanding students and active in their social communities. Bud Olson and Clyde Ames Friends of Gordon's invited him to travel north to Burley, Idaho, to work on the sugar beet and potato farms. Hard, back-breaking labor, but a chance to earn money and maybe a fresh start. His family was struggling at the time. His father was working in Colorado, and his mother was doing odd jobs to make ends meet. Gordon felt obligated to go, but he couldn't leave his love. Frieda, Gordon's sweetheart, joined the trip. On their way up to Burley, Idaho, Gordon and Frieda eloped in Rupert, Idaho, on October 31st, 1941. Halloween. Gordon was 19. Frieda was only 15 years old. On their way to start their new life and see their new home on the beet farm, just 2 hours after their marriage, tragedy struck. At 5:15 p.m., their car, a 1936 Buick, collided with the rear of a flatbed truck. The crash was sudden and merciless. Both died instantly. On their death certificates, it shows that both died in an automobile accident. Gordon died from a skull fracture, and Frieda died from a broken neck. They were 1 mile west of Paul, Idaho, on Highway number 5. Reports say that the truck had no signal or lights showing that the truck was stopped. Gordon's mother, Essie, wrote about that terrible Halloween night. Quote, "Our younger children were at the school Halloween party when the sheriff and deputy came to our door with the awful news. Eugene, who had been working on the Grand Coulee Dam, hurried with my brother Louis to Idaho to bring the young couple home. What a terrible night it was. The funeral was held in our Hiram ward. So many came. The high school even let out for it. Frieda looked so lovely with her curly brown hair and pale blue dress. Gordon was dressed in white. They were buried together in one grave in Logan Cemetery," end quote. With Frieda only being 15, I had to do my research on this, and I found that girls often married young, especially in farming communities, sometimes right after high school or even younger with parent consent. I could not find a marriage certificate. Since Frieda was only 15, they likely did not have parental consent, or they may have misrepresented her age when applying for the license in Idaho. The estimated common marriage age in 1941 for women was 19 to 21. For men, it was 22 to 24. This matches broader U.S. trends at the time, though Utah's marriage age tends to skew slightly younger than the national average due to a couple different reasons. First is strong religious influence, especially among the LDS. The second is a rural family-centered culture, and the third is an earlier entry into adulthood. People often didn't go to college or delay life's milestones. In my research, I found that in Utah, especially in smaller towns or farming communities, it wasn't unusual for girls to marry right out of high school, or even at 16 or 17, with parental consent. Gordon and Frieda's funeral drew a large crowd, including church leaders, school faculty, and classmates. Speakers honored their character, faith, and joyful spirits. Hymns and musical numbers filled the chapel, and floral tributes overflowed the space. They were remembered as beloved youth whose lives, though brief, left a lasting impact. Both were buried together in the Logan Cemetery. Today, when I stand at their grave, I feel the weight of their story. A young love cut tragically short on a Halloween night over 80 years ago. Gordon and Frieda's names are etched side by side, their lives lost forever, intertwined in history and mystery. But why was I drawn to this story? In the course of my research, I discovered something unexpected. Frieda is actually family. She was my great-grandpa's cousin. I had never heard this story before, and her siblings are all long gone, and with them the memories of that tragic Halloween night. But after hours and hours of digging through records, letters, and forgotten archives, I brought their story back to life. From now on, when I visit my grandparents' grave, I'll bring flowers for Gordon and Frieda too. I'll never forget the two young lovers who were taken too soon. Their names no longer lost to time. Thank you for joining me on this journey to remember Gordon and Frieda, two young souls whose story deserves to be told. Please subscribe. New episodes are on Fridays, and mini episodes like this are sporadic.